And welcome. Before we reconvene the meeting, I would ask all who would care to join Mrs. Sutphin in a prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Our most gracious and heavenly Father, we come to you this evening, and Lord, we thank you for all the many blessings that you've put into our lives. Lord, as we prepare for this meeting, we recognize the responsibility as a board that's been placed with us. And as always, we ask for your guidance. We lift up our children that we serve, as well as our faculty and staff, and so many in our community, Lord. We ask that you be with us to help us make the best decisions that we can. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda and to reconvene.
Motion.
Motion from Mrs. Sutphin. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Badgett. All in favor?
Aye.
We are now back in general session. Mrs. Anderson.
Hello, welcome everyone. I'm Molly Anderson. I'm the proud principal of Pilot Middle School. And we are so fortunate this year to partner with the Surry County Office of Substance Abuse Recovery. We are serving as a pilot school for this program. And so they were involved with our Red Ribbon Week. And during that week, they set up a table. They had ribbons and bags. We also had a drug enforcement agent to come in and speak to our 8th grade about drug prevention. And we also had a theme each day where we were just showcasing how we were drug-free. And our student council also did a PSA about drug prevention, and so at this time we would like to show it. Hello, I'm Molly Anderson, the proud principal of Pilot Mountain Middle School. We are so fortunate this year to partner with the Surry County Office of Substance Abuse Recovery.
My name is Charlotte Reeves, and I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator for Surry County Office of Substance Abuse Recovery. I'm proud to say that this year we are partnering with Pilot Mountain Middle School and using this school as a pilot project for teaching prevention efforts to our youth.
My name is Sarah, and I'm Student Council Vice President.
My name is Amy Bindle, and I'm Student Council Secretary, and we are from Pilot Mountain Middle School. We take pride in our beautiful school campus and community, and care about the well-being of our fellow students. The thing that we see affecting our youth most is vaping. Let's talk about vaping. I heard it can do irreversible damage to your lungs. I heard that vapes contain heavy metals that you breathe in. I heard that a Ziploc has as much nicotine as a whole pack of cigarettes. What about the fact that teen brains are still developing? It can cause mental disorders. Have y'all seen that commercial that says that? Yeah. What do you do if somebody asks you for a vape? How do you say no? Say no thanks. That should be enough if they're really your friends. I'll say that I can't because I'm not even at my volleyball game. I mean, I gotta breathe, right? The thing about vaping is it can be addictive, and when you're addicted to one thing, it can lead to other addictive things, like drugs. And once you're addicted to drugs, it's something you battle for the rest of your life. We at PMNS, we stand against vaping and drugs.
We will be celebrating Red Ribbon Week this year in Surry County from October 23rd to October 31st in all the high schools in Surry County, as well as Pilot Mountain Middle School. We will be handing out red ribbon supplies, including red ribbons, pledge cards for the students, backpacks, pens, pencils, stickers, and other goodies. We are very excited to partner with Pilot Mountain Middle School as a pilot school in our prevention efforts for our youth.
Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. Dr. Reeves, I believe you're up.
Good evening, board members. Good to be with you here tonight in Pilot Mountain. I want to thank Ms. Anderson and your staff for hosting us at Pilot Mountain Middle School. Thank you for the introduction and the video. It's great to see our students working in leadership capacities. Tonight, board members, I'm here to recognize our Leader of the Month. And at this time, I'd like to recognize Ms. Christy Bledsoe, second grade teacher at Franklin Elementary School. Congratulations, Ms. Bledsoe.
Thank you.
So proud to recognize you. We surprised you last week.
Yes.
Her students were so excited. I want to read a couple of the nominations, but Ms. Bledsoe was nominated on a number of occasions last month, and people really recognize her hard work, her leadership, her dedication. Ms. Bledsoe is everything you would want your child's teacher to be. I'm always so impressed by her enthusiasm, energy, positive attitude, and extra efforts with her students. She plans extra special experiences for her students every week, often every day. She often tutors students after school for free. I do not know any teacher who did more for her students during remote learning than Ms. Bledsoe. She is a great teammate and colleague. She serves on our school improvement team, is grade level chair, has been on the TRC Dibbles team for several years, teaches summer school, is on our school's literacy committee, and helps lead fun events for our entire school like the Fall Fest Express. She is currently pursuing her national board certification. Christy Bledsoe is an amazing leader and deserves this special recognition. The next nomination, Ms. Bledsoe goes above and beyond every day to give her kids the greatest school experience possible, motivating them. She is always finding new ways to teach. Christy is a leader inside and outside of the classroom. She supports her students' emotional well-being as well as their academics. As a parent, I'm especially thankful for all that she does for my daughter. I could go on, but we're here tonight to recognize Ms. Bledsoe for leading self, leading with others, and changing the world for second graders at Franklin Elementary School and beyond. Congratulations, Ms. Bledsoe. I want to make sure that you have this famous Surry County Schools umbrella to always keep you dry. And several other gifts from our Surry County Schools Educational Foundation, including gift cards from local vendors. We appreciate all you do for our students and our school. Do you have any special guests with you here tonight?
They're at home watching.
Ms. Spicer, are you with us tonight? Would you like to say a few words? This is Margaret Spicer, principal at Franklin Elementary School.
I've only been at Franklin for just a couple of short months, but it was obvious from the very beginning of the time that I've spent with Ms. Bledsoe that she is very committed, not only to her students, but the entire school. So we are very blessed to have her. She's a leader in her classroom. She's a leader in her professional learning community and within the school. So we very much appreciate her.
Miss Spicer.
Would you like to say something? You're more than you don't have.
Oh, well, let me sit down. Thank you. Here. Oh, okay. Oh.
Get it upside down. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Our next item on the board agenda tonight continues with the theme of leadership. Each quarter, we have the opportunity to recognize some special student leaders in our schools. These students are nominated by folks that work with them on a daily basis. They are reviewed by a committee at the central office and carefully selected. When we look at the rubric, of leading self, leading with others, and changing our world. These students exemplify those characteristics. Tonight I have the proud principals of these students with us, and at this time I'm going to introduce Ms. Shara Templeton, principal at Dobson Elementary School, to recognize our first grade span winner. Ms. Templeton?
Thank you, Dr. Reeves and the board. Thank you so much. I am so proud to be the principal at Dobson Elementary, where I also attended school as an elementary student myself. I'm extra proud to be here tonight to be able to recognize one of my students as the Surry County Schools Leader of the Month for elementary students. And actually, if you all will kind of humor me for a minute, she doesn't even know that she's being recognized tonight. So this is a big surprise to her. She thinks that they just had to come to the board meeting. So at Dobson Elementary, two of our top priorities are developing students as both learners and leaders. Students who will graduate high school, go to college, or enter the workforce, and be able to work well with others because they have a leadership skill set that includes attributes such as self-awareness, accountability, integrity, respect, and collaboration, just to name a few. Valeria Baltazar Castillo is a wonderful example of how we can check ourselves and see that we are in fact doing something right. Valeria can routinely be seen starting up computers in the computer lab and the media center, oftentimes taking another student with her to train just in case she has to be absent. But her qualities don't stop there. Valeria was elected Student Council President this year, and she was eagerly prepared for the first meeting, where she dove into presenting ideas she had for making the most of our upcoming school events, like Spirit Week. She is an active participant in our Grow Strong Running Club. She's training for Battle of the Books. She's in the Robotics Club as well. I have both seen and been told on regular occasions where Valeria will assist her classmates, distinguishing herself as the type of student her teachers can count on to be a peer tutor and a friend. Through these actions, she regularly demonstrates leadership by example. Valeria has also impressed me, she might not know this, in one particular way this school year. Last year and at the beginning of this year, we were unable to have our flag guard because of COVID restrictions. So this year, our school counselor took over those responsibilities and those duties, and he began taking care of the flag every day. Just a couple of days into that process, Valeria came to him and wanted to know why he folded the flag a certain way. So he taught her what he knew, and then she began to help him each day to fold the flag. It wasn't long into the school year that we were fortunate to have Sergeant McCormick from Surry Central High School come and train all of our fifth graders on flag guard, how to care for the flag, and how to be responsible citizens. And then a couple of weeks into that, I'll give you two guesses who was at the front of the training, ready to learn, who quickly volunteered to be a part of the first flag guard in the month of October, is consistently among the first students to arrive for morning flag duty, even if it means flying the flag before eating breakfast. And Valeria doesn't do these things for the spotlight. I know this because she does them when there's nothing to even be gained except for herself and to help others. She regularly demonstrates true leadership in her interactions with staff and students. She is confident but humble and willing to be vulnerable, always pushing herself to continued growth. So thank you, Board of Education and Dr. Reeves, for helping me be able to recognize Valeria Baltazar Castillo as the Surry County Schools Elementary Leader of the Month. And Valeria has with her tonight her mom and dad, and her brother Jose Yvonne, and her grandparents are also here with her this evening.
Congratulations. Thank you for stepping up. All right, great things from our students. We appreciate our parents and grandparents being here tonight. We have another student leader to recognize. At this time, I'll recognize Principal Molly Anderson from Pilot Mountain Middle School.
Congratulations to our middle school student leader winner, Ileani Caro. She is an 8th grader at Pilot Mountain Middle School. She is a leader in so many ways. Her science teacher, Miss Blakeney, nominated her because she leads in the classroom by being a role model for all students. During class, she is always participating, completing all of her work, and helping others. When her class eats at lunch outside, she takes the initiative to gather all the trash up because she wants to be the person who helps whenever possible. Ileani always deals with problems and challenges in a mature, reasonable way. She is eager to learn, help others, and maintain a positive attitude at all times. Her classmates also recognize that she is a leader. Several classmates made the following comments. Ileani is always helping everyone. She is good at explaining things. She strives to be a good person. She makes good choices. She is a great athlete, a good friend, and she is a role model who is confident in who she is. We are so fortunate to have Ileani as a student at Pilot Mountain Middle School, and we are very proud that she is being recognized as the student leader of the quarter for Surry County Schools.
Also want to thank the Caros for being here tonight, Mom and Dad. At this time, I'd like to recognize Misty Holloway, principal at Surry Central High School, for our high school student. Ms. Holloway?
Thank you, Dr. Reeves, and thank you, Board of Education. Congratulations to our high school student winner, Spencer LeClaire. Spencer is a 12th grader at Surry Central High School. He is a first-year football player as a senior. He has attended 100% of the practices, and he also attends practices for our ROTC Raiders, often on the same days. He is a leader in strength class by helping teach other students proper technique and encouraging classmates to continue to work hard for improvement. He also goes above and beyond by doing extra activities like painting the field and field setup. Spencer also recommended having Raiders practice on Saturdays in order to have our school team develop into a winning team, and this obviously paid off because our team won second place in the Air Force Division at the Tri-State Raider Meet with his leadership. He earned his private pilot's license in mid-August. Surry Central is proud of you, Spencer.
November is Veterans History Awareness Month, so before I read a proclamation into the minutes, I would like to ask all the veterans in the audience, and I know we have 2 on our board, to please stand to be recognized. Thank you all for your service. Whereas on June 4th, 1928, Congress passed a resolution to observe November 11th with appropriate ceremonies, and whereas on May 13th, 1938, Congress approved an act that November 11th should be a legal holiday known as Armistice Day, and whereas on June 1st, 1954, Congress approved an act that changed the name from Armistice Day to Veterans Day, and whereas on November 11th, Americans recognize and remember the sacrifices made and the service given of the men and the women who daily defend and protect the United States of America and our freedom, and whereas the Surry County Board of Education adopted Policy 3300, School Calendar and Time for Learning, that designates the month of November Veterans History Awareness Month. Now, therefore, I, Dr. Terry E. Mosley, serving as chairperson of the Surry County Board of Education, do hereby proclaim November 2021 as the observance of Veterans History Awareness Month. Thank you all for your service. Additionally, the first week in November is traditionally American Education Week. It's only fitting to honor all our educators. And I would ask those who serve in education in the audience to please stand. I know there's some of you.
Should be a lot.
Whereas public schools are the backbone of our democracy, providing young people with the tools they'll need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality. And whereas by equipping young Americans with both practical skills and broader intellectual abilities, schools give them hope for and access to a productive future. And whereas education employees, be they custodians or teachers, bus drivers or librarians, work tirelessly to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism. And whereas schools are community linchpins, bringing together adults and children, educators and volunteers, business leaders and elected officials in a common enterprise. Now, therefore, I, Dr. Terry E. Mosley, serving as chairman of the Surry County Board of Education, do hereby proclaim November 15th through 19th, 2021 as the 99th annual observance of American Education Week. At this time, we'll move to public comment. Would ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes so that everyone has an opportunity to speak. If you would tell us where your child attends school, it would be helpful. And I believe Mrs. Freeman will call your name as you have signed up.
Jill Inman. Making those decisions on such a hard scale is bigger than I can comprehend, and I appreciate all that you do. Through virtual streaming, we've been given the opportunity as parents to hear the conversations behind your decision, and that's really important for our understanding. This was especially true 2 Fridays ago with the called meeting about masks. Masks have been a hot topic from the very beginning everywhere, but being able to hear both sides told respectfully by each one of you, some of you saying exactly what I was thinking and feeling and worrying about, and others being able to articulate others' feelings, thoughts, and concerns, was really helpful. It was not an easy decision, but you guys tackled it with an air of collaboration and agreement and a desire to do the right thing. And we were able to hear that because of the virtual meetings. And I want to thank you for doing that. it's really hard to make these decisions and then to have the conversation so publicly. Everything that you do is on a stage, and that's a lot. So sometimes it's okay to send an email and say thank you, but today I just wanted to come in person and say, we really appreciate what you're doing for advocating for our kids, for looking at them separately and saying, let's wait for the younger kids, but not hold back the bigger kids. It's a big deal, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Denman.
Hi, I'm Diana Gwynn, and I'll gladly yield my time to anyone who needs it. Thank you.
Christy Parker.
Christy Parker, mom of a student at Surry Central High School. I'm going to start off saying today that I am tickled to death that my child was able to attend school today without a mask, because that is what's best for her health, in my opinion, as her birth mother. I am still, however, not happy with the control that Surry County School Board still has to make that decision for me as her parent. And I'm only hoping and praying that this is not some sort of ploy to show us parents that are against masks that the numbers possibly will go up by the kids not wearing them. So I'm praying for that. I'm about sick of school board telling us what to do when it comes to our child's health. I still don't think that's any business of anybody but ours. For an example, my family had COVID in the house probably 2 months ago now. We called the school and let them know that there was COVID in the house. We were told by the school that if you can bring your child by, get a rapid test, and it was negative, she was allowed to come back. That's part of the problem I'm having with the school board and with the schools. There's nothing set in stone with y'all. You know, there's nothing across the board that makes any sense. You know, we can have the cheerleaders at Surry Central out for weeks on end because there's somebody within the squad that might have had COVID or did have COVID. But yet, I called the school to tell them that my child was in a house with COVID, and I was told that if she come and got a rapid test and it come back negative, that she could come on to school. So still to this day, that makes absolutely no sense to me. I have friends that have children right now that are still coming to school, which is fine, but they may have colds, sniffles, coughs, or whatever, and they're sent home. We understand that everybody's scared to death of this for some reason, but what happened to our kids being able to go to the nurse and getting their temperature taken, or going to check and see if there's anything else going on? But no, evidently our teachers and our staff's able just to send children home over this, and then won't let them come back to school until they get a positive or a negative test, COVID test, in order to return. This is really affecting the staff, the teachers, and the children, especially their mental health. I was told by a parent about 2 weeks ago that they witnessed a principal at Cedar Ridge jumping on a third grader. They got out of the car without a mask on. Of course, they waited till the parent drove off, evidently, before they said anything to the kids. So evidently it was bad enough that one of the teachers at Cedar Ridge had to stop the principal from saying too much more. And from what I was told, the principal was saying, well, next time they come without a mask, they just won't be able to get out of the car. I won't let them out. So I understand that our staff and our teachers and our students are really feeling the brunt of this. And I just don't know what's worth. I don't know what it's worth. You know, with the rates like they are, with the percentages of kids and who would die or who wouldn't die from COVID, I just don't know that it's worth all of the mental health issues and the stresses that it's putting on everybody. And I've got another big question for each of you to consider. If doing the mask mandate was something that the government wanted you to do in order to get money for our school system or whatever, what else are we going to do? If the government comes down and says that the school system has to give shots to all of our kids for them to attend school, but if you'll make them do this, we'll give you another $25 million. Are you going to do that too? You know, it ain't just as simple as a mask. That's something pretty small. But what about the shot next? What about this critical race theory? Is that coming next too? I just want the school board not to have as much control as they've got right now. It's my kid, my student. Her health is my responsibility, because the school board's not going to pay for anything that happens to her. I have to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Parker.
Brian Parker.
Hey, my name is Brian Parker. At last month's meeting, I made a few comments, called out Surry Central High School pretty sternly. I appreciate the principal at Surry Central. She called me very first thing the next morning. We had a meeting together, face to face. Boy, she's human. Unlike how I feel about you guys. I feel like you're robots sitting behind a steel wall. It was productive for me and for her, I believe. She assured me that she'll address my concerns. You guys have not assured me that you'll address our concerns. You bull crap around, push it off, hide it behind something, have surprise meetings that parents that are working cannot attend, even though there was no public comment session. I have a lot of respect for several of you that I've worked with over the years, but it's dwindling fast. I still love you because that's what God says I'm supposed to do. But I do not think you're doing the job that you need to be doing for our children. I'm getting more and more passionate about this every month. Look at my face, because I'm going to be here at every meeting from now on. Whether you're on the board or not, somebody's going to see me at a meeting. I'm going to express my concerns not over just COVID, but dress codes, telephones in schools, transgender issues. You guys are supposed to provide the best education available. We're not getting that. The parents are not getting, our children's not getting it. This mask mandate thing, our daughter said that days before your meeting where you come up with this exclusion rate, that they had already relaxed mask at somewhat. Some teachers would still call them down, some would not if they were not wearing it. They were sitting closer than 6 feet at lunch that had been told you stay 6 feet away. So things are slipping. It's not just the principal. She's doing the best she can. She might have 1,000 kids to look after, but your whole staff is not on the same page, especially when a teacher says, I'll not teach those kids if they don't wear a mask in my class, even though the exclusion rate is below 5%. That is wrong. So your rules are not the same as the opinion of your teachers. You guys are not on the same page across the board, and we've brought that up before. I believe that your time on the board is limited, each and every one of you. At the last meeting, someone asked for some resignations, and I would greatly appreciate it if everyone would turn in their resignation on the Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parker.
Daniel Poindexter.
Hello, my name is Daniel Poindexter. I'm a student at East Surry, First of all, I want to say thank you for making the mask optional, and Dr. Reeves for your plan that you came up with. First time I've been to school in 2 years without a mask on. When I walked in, I felt guilty for not wearing a mask because the principal normally hollers at us and tells us to put our mask on. But the main concern is in my math class, my teacher separated the masked from the unmasked and moved the unmasked to the back of the class, and she told us that she was not coming to our desk to help us. And that is just a major problem because it's math, it's hard, it's a struggle, and yeah. Second, I've seen teachers and principals out in public, different places, festivals, and they weren't wearing their masks. This was before the mask optional, and they really should practice what they preach. And it's just a double standard. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
Hello, I'm Brandy Chilton. My daughter attends Westfield Elementary School. I'm here just to reconsider, it's a little bit different than everybody else, but to reconsider the mask for optional for the children in elementary school beginning December the 1st. As we move forward, and we know that there's flu season and other things that are coming across, more colds, more things like that, and if we take away the mask, we're probably going to see more exposures. And more exposures means more quarantines. So as we have an objective here is to our students to give them the best education possible, and I do believe that face-to-face is the best education. I am not opposed to people having opinions of masks or how they feel, but I understand that as being a healthcare person myself, that masks do help eliminate those. And if we follow the CDC guidelines with quarantining, then you know as well as I do that a whole class could be quarantined. So that means the whole class would be home. So, and we know that we're not doing virtual learning now, so I just really want people to consider that as we move forward. We want the best interest for our children. And I understand that many people have other options or other opinions, and that's fine because everybody does. But I just want what's best for these elementary kids, especially. The vaccine has not come out yet. It's supposed to be by the end of the week. So as that comes, it would give more children the opportunity to get vaccinated if a parent wishes for them to have vaccination. And I just want to say thank you for all you're doing in this and Inside and Out. It's been a rough 2 years. Nothing is normal anymore, and you know that as well as I do, and I see it every day in healthcare. So I appreciate your time, and I hope you would consider.
Thank you, Mrs. Chilton. Seeing no others, we'll move forward. Dr. Reeves, am I correct that the next item has been removed from the agenda tonight
Yes, ma'am.
at the presenter's request?
At the presenter's request.
All right, we'll move on to school climate transformation grant year 2 updates. Ms. Southern?
Good evening, board and everyone. It's great to be here this evening. I just want to come with some updates of our school climate transformation grant, our CARES grant, Climate and Relationships That Encourage. And so we finished our year 2 of our grant and started year 3. So I just wanted to give you a few updates from our grant. That would help. Thank you. There we go. So just a reminder, we do have 4 goals for our grant. One is to implement MTSS with fidelity and have our evidence-based practices for all of our tiers. Goal 2 is for educator development, professional development for educators and technical assistance for MTSS. Also, number 3 is all about our leadership framework and developing leaders with our students and our staff. And then goal 4 is designing prevention strategies for opioid abuse for students and support students that may have been impacted by family addiction. So what have we done thus far? Of course, we have done our hiring with our project director, myself, extra social worker, school counselor, mental health counselor. Also, we have done lots of trainings thus far. Some of our trainings couldn't take place because they're in person due to COVID during year 2, but we have been able to change that a little bit and had some trainings. Youth mental health first aid has been our biggest one. We've done our leadership team, our nurses, our counselors, and now our staff at each school. We did a hybrid option and hybrid model using our trainers here in the district, which is myself, Mrs. Cushman, our mental health counselor, along with a school counselor, Ms. Crockett, and our school psychologist, Ms. Johnson. So we were able to, the first week of August, train in youth mental health first aid, and that provides those trainings for signs and symptoms for mental health, suicide, and so I've heard nothing but great feedback from those trainings that we provided for staff. You can also see we have some trainings that were developed for specific groups. For example, our zones of regulations is for all counselors and behavior specialists, and that's part of that goal 1. It provides a tier 2 support that counselors can provide to students. Also, we have ESSET training. That's what counselors took as well. Student support exposed to trauma, where they can do small groups if students are exposed to trauma. Also, that we have worked with the Center for Creative Leadership. That was part of our goal 3 in building those leadership development with teachers. We finished cohort 9 last October. In October, 9 cohorts, and we're getting ready to do cohorts 10 and 11 to develop those leadership qualities for teachers. And then we have working with our design team that develops our scope and sequence. You saw tonight our leaders of the quarter were recognized. We have a scope and sequence now that we are implementing throughout the district at each grade span for those leadership skills. We also have had Check and Connect training. That's also part of our MTSS Tier 2 supports. That's a mentor training in middle and high school. We worked with a cohort 1. And we're getting ready to do cohort 2 with middle and high school. We actually have some mentor training this week for some of our middle school folks. Panorama training, of course we give our panorama survey, that's part of MTSS as well as our universal screener. And then we have Too Good for Drugs and Too Good for Drugs and Violence. We were able to train for that this summer as well and have been implementing that in our middle and high schools. Nothing but good feedback on that particular program as well that helps with goal 4 of our grant and that prevention strategy for opioid and substance abuse. And our nurses were trained in SBIRT. That's a screening system that they can use and referral for treatment for substance abuse as well. And then our school psychologist and mental health counselor is trained in trauma-focused CBT therapy, where they can do one-on-one, and that's part of that Tier 3 system. So you can see we've been able to implement a little bit more within year 2. Based on COVID, we weren't able to that first year as much, but in year 2, we've been able to implement some additional. Our evaluation progress for the grant looks at our school climate surveys that we give, along with our school data. We look at discipline referrals, our MTSS trainings, our school improvement teams do the FAM-S, and what that is that tells us what supports they need at their school based on those scores that can help us determine if they need Tier 2 interventions, Tier 3 interventions, but that is done at the state level as well. We also use our Center for Creative Leadership surveys that we give once a year as well. Part of the grant is to give an interim report and an annual report, and both of those were done in year 2. So a little bit about the school climate survey. You can see this year it was given in February and March. We had an uptick in our parents and staff that took it this year. So you can see the difference between 2019-2020, the first year versus the second. We were a little bit lower in our student response, and we think that's due to middle and high school still being on that rotation schedule, where some were at school A/B days, and then some principals that I talked to, some of those remote learners, we had a hard time getting them to complete the survey. But we still had a great number of students that completed it as well. So here you can see some student responses based on a variety of different categories that were given based on school climate. Students perceive behavior and interactions more positively in 2021 versus in 2019-2020. And there you can see some of the categories that they were asked, and you see that there were improvements, as well as that last one shows that it has gone down. Students get bullied at this school. That's a particular question. We want to see that one go down as well. So those were some of our responses from our survey this year from our students. Our parents who completed the surveys perceived school services and communications more positively in 2020 than 2019-2020, and so there you can see some of their categories that they had to answer, and so there were positive responses that went with those as well. And then our staff takes the student survey. Theirs looks a little different as well, but overall staff perceive school services, environment, resources more positively in 2021 than in 1920. And there you can see some of their categories as well. So overall, looking at our school climate survey, we did see an increase in those positive responses for students, parents, and staff. For Goal 2, educator development, this one, the blue bar is 2020-2021. We did see staff feels that school programs and resources support students more in 2020-21 than in 2019-2020. So we did see an uptick in that particular area on our school climate survey and responses from staff. The bottom bar, which is supposed to be gray, but up there it looks to be white, is from 2019-2020. So we did see an increase in those as well. Our leadership survey that we give is also once a year, and on average, the student leadership efficacy, it declined a little bit, and here's the reason why we think that. In terms of, it was attached to a panorama survey that we gave, and some folks didn't click on the link to take it. And so we have now worked with Dr. Danley and our curriculum coaches to make sure that our benchmark timelines, the survey will be given separately. And so, but you can still see they get a score between 1 and 5, and we're still within that 3.9, 3.2 range. 3.28 was our spring of 2020-2021 score. It did decline a little bit with our responses, but it's still high in that students think that, and here's the items that are on the side, that leadership can be taught. They see themselves as a leader. They can believe they can change my ability to be a leader, and I know that I can improve my leadership skills. So it's still important because it's still closer to that 5 range. As far as Goal 4 within the school climate survey, we do have some questions that are related to the opioid substance abuse prevention. And in 2020-2021, a small percentage of middle and high school students perceive that students smoke and use alcohol or drugs. So you can see that that score, that blue score, 20 and 2021, had decreased, which is what we want it to do, from 1920. So upon our taking that school climate grant, it perceives that it has gone down. And we appreciate those efforts for Red Ribbon Week last week, and with the partnership with the substance abuse prevention team that hopefully can help us with this as well. So we continue to appreciate their partnership. Also on the school climate survey with Goal 4 in 2020 and 2021, more middle and high school staff, this is staff perceptions, believe that schools have programs to address or prevent substance abuse. And hopefully this will continue to improve because we started DARE back. DARE was able to come back to schools this year, along with implementing our Too Good for Drugs and Too Good for Drugs and Violence in that middle and high school level. And then we're partnering with our local health department, which I just talked to today, to implement that into the elementary schools after Christmas. So we're excited about those programs. So as we continue year 3, we will continue with our youth mental health first aid, as that is part of that General Statute 476 to continue to train folks in mental health, all new staff. We will also continue to train in Check and Connect training with the additional Cohort 2 middle and high schools. Also on the grant, we have something called Safe Schools Ambassadors Club in the high school. And what that is it's a club that, let me put my glasses on, focuses on motivation, problem solving, skills needed to resolve conflict, and diffuse situations. It can help stop bullying and violence in schools. And so that's one program that we will be implementing in year 3 in our high schools. Along with, we'll be working with the Center for Creative Leadership on cohorts 10 and 11, and working with building our leadership champions at each school so that we have a team of teachers that can help principals develop and use that scope and sequence that our leadership design team has created. And then we are looking at developing Second Step, which is lessons on SEL that can also go with our scope and sequence and our leadership framework that we've developed. And then there you can see our budget on the side for year 3 and our spending that we have for next year. So, any questions?
I'll just go ahead and start with the budget
Sure.
there, because that is an increase, such an increase from this past year. So what are those, like I see the steps here, but what would you say the big factors are that you would drive to use that level of budget?
Probably one of the biggest things is the implementation of Second Step. That's a curriculum that will probably drive that a lot, our budget, along with the Safe Schools Ambassadors. That budget, because there's training involved, there's folks that have like 2-day trainings that come out and train folks. There's materials that go with that as well. So those are 2 big. Youth mental health first aid is also big for our budget because it's a hybrid model, and so they take online classes and the materials come through that online so that you have it on hand electronically. So that's also something that drives that budget. Also, of course, we do have hiring with it, with myself, mental health counselor, social worker, school counselor, providing those extra supports in schools is also within that budget.
So is the Second Steps curriculum, is that a curriculum you have to purchase?
Yes.
That's
yes,
not
ma'am.
included with the grant, but is it recommended with the
No,
grant?
it is included in the grant. This is part of the grant. It comes with materials, and the training is a part of that as well.
I guess my question, is it a requirement of the grant that everyone is purchasing the same curriculum?
Yes, it is. It's part of
Okay.
that. It's part of that first goal of having a universal, core component. It also can go with our leadership goal of goal 3 because those lessons can correlate with the scope and sequence that we've already created with our leadership framework. So actually it fits kind of nicely with it. And it's evidence-based. And that's what the grant is all about. When we work with the grant and work with the Department of Education, they're all about evidence products, and Second Steps is one of those.
And is the thought that we would implement that in, quote, year 3 of the grant and then continue utilizing that curriculum?
Yes, ma'am. Like we would train this month or train this year and be able to implement in years 4 and 5. So.
Ms. Sutphen, as a requirement of the federal grant, we had to include evidence-based programs from the What Works Clearinghouse to satisfy the federal grant. So all of these measures, obviously, all of these particular pieces are research-based and evidence-based so that we can measure their success. And so we have an evaluation group that consistently measures the success of this grant throughout the duration.
Okay. And then back on the training slide.
Sure, yes.
Can you
want me to go back to that
remind us what the zones of regulation?
Sure, I sure can.
Tell us about that term.
Zones of regulation is actually a tier 2 support, and because you can do it in small groups, and it's fabulous if you ever get to see it. In fact, there's someone that I know that's sitting close to you. His daughter is excellent at zones of regulation in her school. And what it is learning how to manage your emotions, and because they use like a stop sign, red, green, blue, and yellow. And what it does is it gives different activities, small group lessons to help kids manage their emotions and what to do when I feel a certain way. If I'm angry, here, am I red, am I green, or how do I get back down to a green if I'm a red? And then counselors can support students in small groups to help. There's different kinds of lessons that can help to support how to manage that anger or any emotion, sadness, feeling overwhelmed, feeling frustrated. All those emotions are included in zones of regulation.
Okay. And then I see you've identified the cohorts. How many are in a cohort?
It depends on the topic. Like, for example, Check and Connect, we only have 4 in that cohort. It was North Surry, Pilot Middle, Central Middle, and Meadowview. So we just had 4 in that particular cohort. So that would leave in the next cohort everybody else for Check and Connect. So it now, as far as if we looked at a different cohort, but in Surry County we like to keep everybody on the same page, we may do everybody. Just depends on what it is. The DPI would only allow us to do so many schools trained at one time. So they were cohort 1. Based on, like I said, their evaluation, such as their discipline data. It could be different sets of data, attendance, different things like that, how they were chosen for cohorts.
Okay. Is there any thought of extending this grant because of the COVID break? Is there, are they going to extend it out any because of that, because we had so much virtual? Or you haven't heard anything on that?
I haven't heard anything. Working with the evaluation group, Mr. Coe, who's our grant writers and kind of helps us progress monitor with the grant, and doing some sessions with the Department of Education. We haven't heard that. Typically, they won't give you the carryover sometimes, and so they have allowed that since COVID has been an issue. So that was one thing that we were granted, was the carryover, which was very nice, because we weren't able to use some of the funds because it had to be face-to-face, or we had to move it virtually, things like that. So they allowed for us to use that.
Very good.
Yes.
I have 2 quick questions, Ms. Southern.
Yes.
One on the survey and one on services.
Okay.
Since most of the people in the audience and anybody listening virtually can't see, I'm very impressed with the number of respondents. Parents more than doubled. 642 parents this past year took part in the survey, and almost 4,000 students, which is 60% of our school system. Is that survey anonymous?
Yes.
Do they take it without any? Because I know sometimes people won't take and be honest on one if they don't.
Yes.
If they've got to give
it
their
is
name.
Anonymous. We don't know their identity or anything like that. So
okay, good.
It is anonymous.
Now,
and I think with the parent one, like you said, we had great communication during COVID, and I think that helped as well. Our principals did a great job with communication, so I think that helped boost that parent survey. So. Okay.
And it's on the services side, and this directly relates to the situation we're in with COVID. Obviously, and every consideration we have here, I think we take the child's mental health into consideration. How have we helped those children that have had mental health issues during COVID, or how is this process? And I think it's amazing that we did this before COVID. The grant, everything came about before and is in place to help with this. How do we help those kids who have mental health challenges because of the things they're going through with COVID?
A lot of it is with our counselors. Having a counselor in every building has been phenomenal, because they're kind of like our first line of defense, having them there to be able to help students who show anxiety or depression, things like that. That has been a big help, is to have counselors in our buildings. And then having them have that specific training that can help them with small groups or individual one-on-one. Also, our mental health counselors have been phenomenal in creating our mental health plan and having those referrals, and then being able to seek assistance for them, even if it be in our, with our own staff, or if it be with our MOUs and any outside agencies. So I think that has been instrumental as part of the grant and helping those kids through COVID.
And I'm glad you mentioned school counselors. I am obviously very in tune to what school counselors do, and I wish everyone understood that they're no longer just guidance counselors who help you pick classes. They're there for mental health. They're there for, like you said, the calming corners and the things that help those kids de-escalate so we can talk about it.
Absolutely. They're so important, and we're so fortunate to have one in every school.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Everybody good? Thank you, Mrs. Southern.
Thank you.
I think you're also.
I am. I think I'm going to stay right here. Is that okay?
That'll be just fine.
I just wanted to give an update with our Say Something anonymous reporting. This was approved. I just wanted to give a little timeline. Back in April, we chose, Dr. Reeves tasked me to investigate some tip lines and make sure we were following the guidelines that, obviously tip lines have to be monitored 24/7. And so we chose to go with the Say Something anonymous reporting system, which was approved back in April. We also signed an MOU with them to create the K-5, because it's really just a 6-12, so now it's K-12. And also, they oversee right now our Blackboard tip line. So when Blackboard tips come in, they let us know instantly when those tips are put in as well. So in May, we did that MOU with Mr. Johnson's approval, and he helped us through that process. With Say Something. And so in May, we were able to add our Say Something hotline to our school website, as well as them taking over our Blackboard tips and helping us monitor those as well. In August of 2021, this school year, we created school teams. So each school created a team of 3 to 5 members. That includes the administrator, school counselor, and also any other designated staff that the principal would like on their team. And we had to add that to the Say Something portal. We did a virtual district and school teams training on the 18th and on September the 15th. And so that was for us to learn all about the Say Something process, how they put in tips, as well as how we receive those tips and how we handle those tips. And so that was all part of that training. On September 21st and 28th, we had our test tip launch, and I would like to say we made 100 on both days. Everybody did great. What that does is that checks to make sure that we've got the information in the system correctly and that everyone is receiving those tips. And so that test tip came in, and we were all, everybody was in the system correctly, and they signed in, signed their name, signed that they had seen it. And so it was, that's part of their requirement, is to do that test tip launch. In October, we shared, Mr. Vi, Mr. Atkins, and I came up with a Say Something guide to kind of help principals. When you get this tip, what do you do with it? What does it look like? How can I close it out? Kind of give them some guidelines to kind of help walk through that process. There's 2 tips that you get. You get a non-life safety tip, or you get a life safety tip. And so we gave suggestions and strategies on how to take care of the non-life safety tip and the safety tip. And then at the end, how to close it out and how to communicate with Say Something so that so they know that someone has taken care of that tip, no matter what it is. So upcoming, we're getting ready to train students on the Say Something apps and the tip. So all K-12 students will be trained in our new tip line. We're signed up for November the 8th through the 19th. Principals are signing up their schools and picking times right now. So in November, we will have our website linked. We'll have the app, and the hotline will officially be added to the website. And we will be notifying families through our communications department, working with Ms. Lyons to make sure that we're communicating that Say Something is getting ready to go live at the end of November. So Blackboard tip will be removed from the website at the end of November as well, because Say Something will then be our new tip line. So once we train, we train students, everything goes live after that. So by the end of the month, we should have our Say Something all set up and ready to go. Any questions?
How how is the student training?
It's virtually. What they do is it's an hour training. It's virtual. It's a live training, so they do about a 30 to 45-minute presentation on the app, how to use the website, how to use the hotline, signs and symptoms. They also train them on warning signs and symptoms, so that if within their friends, if they see something or if they see something odd at school, you know, things that they can look for. And then there's like a 15-minute question and answer session at the end, so students have an opportunity to ask any questions to the trainer. That's my understanding. Now, I haven't seen it. I'm hoping to go to the first one, but when talking with Say Something and our trainers, she says that's what it looks like. It's about 30 to 45 minutes, and then there's a 15-minute question and answer at the end.
Is it grade specific?
What they do is they do a 6-12 training, and then we will do our own K-5 training.
That's where I was getting at.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do this?
Yeah, with a kindergartner?
Yes,
ma'am.
there you go.
Mhm.
That's it.
Yep. And so we'll do that. She is going to send me some links and and by she, I mean the trainer we work with through Say Something and Sandy Hook. She is helping me to design a K-5 that's more appropriate.
And will that be delivered by our guidance counselors?
That will
during
be
their
delivered, it will be
guidance?
online, and it will, we'll do
during
like a
their guidance?
recording,
Yeah.
and then we will work through our school personnel in the elementary level. Probably through teachers, counselors, things like that.
Thank you.
How does the staff plan to report these findings in a general way to us each month? Because I think it's important we know what tips are coming in. So how do you plan to let us know what you're getting on the tip line?
Well, there are reports that come with this. So once we start, we can run reports specifically. And that's something that we are still learning as well with the system, but it will run reports on different types of tips and what we're looking at.
Okay.
That's an advantage over this system versus the other system. There was no way to filter and run reports.
Good. Okay.
And Sandy Hook's really doing us a favor by including the K-5 section. They don't do that with other districts. We've asked so that we wouldn't have an anonymous reporting system for elementary that's different than the Say Something for 6-12. So we're kind of a pilot for them so that they could potentially take this K-12 across the state. It's a good system. It's monitored 24/7. It's free to the school system. It's being paid for through state funds. Sandy Hook Promise is the organization that's behind See Something, Say Something. They also have marketing materials that will help our principals and teachers help our students understand what the tip line is for, obviously, so they could report anything on campus either anonymously, or they can certainly list their name so the principal can follow up with them.
As a high school teacher, good luck with that hour of training.
Yeah.
I don't
It's
think you're
been
going to
fun
keep your
trying to find
attention
that,
for an hour,
yes.
but good. I hope it worked.
Well, as a parent of a young elementary child, I would just want us to be aware of what they need to be aware of their surroundings at their school, but for how much detail we go into of what happened at Sandy Hook.
Right.
Because that is my concern.
And that I don't think is included in there. It's all about just safety and awareness.
Awareness. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
At that elementary level.
Thank you.
Yes.
And obviously our 3, 4, 5 students have access to Chromebooks and would be able to utilize those. We also, in the past, we've had 5th graders submit tips about things that potentially happen on the bus or in the class. So we do have elementary students using the current tip line on a much smaller basis.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mrs. Southern.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Third grade read to achieve data.
Lynn Holmes.
How's your
Good evening, Ms. Holmes. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I hope you guys are. I'm Lynn Holmes, Elementary Curriculum Coordinator, and I'm here to talk to you just a little bit about some information and some updates on Read to Achieve. I will draw your attention in the beginning. We did update this form earlier today, so there are some updates from earlier if you had looked at it earlier. we've found a couple of errors and we wanted to make sure that that was correct. If you'll take a look at that top, everybody has the form, right? Okay. If you'll take a look at that top table, you'll see that that's the information based on our third grade students that have demonstrated proficiency on some type of pathway over the years. And so we did list in each box under the year, we listed the additional assessments that could be used to meet a pathway. And so you'll see that they changed over the years, and that's a little bit of the reason for the differences in some of the numbers that you see there. In 2017, our TRC assessments was one of the pathways that was available, and they were given, started that year, given by the assessment team, so that we have consistency across the county. Same in 2018, but then in 2019 we had the iStation online program, and that was a completely different process, being online versus being a face-to-face assessment with a teacher. And so the numbers dropped just slightly there. In October of 2020, you'll see a spike there. The majority of our students, our elementary students, took the iReady assessment at home, and so we did see some vast differences with that based on from beginning of the year to middle of the year when they were back in the buildings taking that assessment. So in October of this year, you'll notice TRC is no longer a possibility as our as a pathway, and so DIBELS 8 is now the state assessment, and so that's a little bit different information that's being collected from students. And so you'll see that we did have a little bit of a drop, but these are the students that have had some effects of the last couple of years of their education, and so we foresee that going up now that we've got them all back in the classrooms. The second table that you see there, that's the information that is TRC data from last year at beginning of the year to this year at beginning of the year. You'll see a difference there in kindergarten. We went from 61% proficient last year to 50% proficient this year. One possibility there could be that our students, if they stayed at home during the pandemic year and missed that last year of preschool or a daycare, that could be a possibility. The information collected there for TRC in kindergarten is mainly print concepts, looking at books, the beginning of the book, the end of the book, that kind of thing. You'll see first grade was very close, second grade was close, and third grade, I was real excited about that one. I think that's a great testament to our teachers and our administrators of how that score went up just a little bit there. DIBELS 8 is our state assessment. We didn't put that information on here because you really can't compare it to last year's DIBELS. It was a different system and a different set of assessments and scores. And so since we have been using TRC in the past and we were still able to use TRC, that's the reason we included that data. Next year we'll be able to do DIBELS 8 from the beginning of this year to the beginning of next year. Any questions?
It's a pretty drastic drop-off, I think, from 20 to 21. And you said they're asking different information. Is this something not covered in our curriculum, or why would there be such a major? And I understand being at home, some might have had a little bit of help in taking their assessment at home that they didn't have in school. So what do you think could have been, what are we asking them that's different?
So in the information up at the top, the differences, some are the assessments that are possible. So iReady was a possibility last year and is still a possibility this year, and of course iReady was taken at home last year. Mm-hmm. Last year it was TRC was the possibility, a possible pathway, and this year TRC is not a possible pathway, it is DIBELS 8 instead, and so that provided a little bit of a difference there. Like I said, we're hoping that this number will go up drastically at MOI. We foresee some good things just in our progress monitoring that we're seeing already in the DIBELS, that it's really, we're seeing a lot of upswings.
Statewide, the iReady scores last year were inflated because those students took the assessments at home.
I could see that.
Within the sheet that we receive at home on our students' progress, there's actually different categories that it's broken down into, like phonemic awareness and the comprehension. Are you seeing any drastic changes in that? Is it kind of an average across, or does one area kind of stand out more than another?
So we're not seeing a huge difference in one area to the other, but Dibbles 8 is a completely new system. Dibbles Next is what we used last year, and there were different assessments, but the scoring of the difference made the big differences. So it's kind of hard to compare to see what the changes are from last year to this year in terms of one particular measure.
Yeah, or even if you didn't compare years, was there any particular area, consistent area that needed focus?
Nothing stood out, no, in like an outlier on either side.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mrs. Holmes? Thank you for the work you do every day. Literacy is important, and appreciate the work that you do with the additional assistants that we've hired to help work on the learning gaps that came from when children were at home.
Yes, that has been a wonderful addition. I do appreciate that. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Clark.
Mr. Hardy, I think you're next.
Good evening, Board. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm Rodney Hardy, Transportation Director for the school system, and I'm here this evening seeking your permission for a committee to explore and study staggered school bills. This committee will meet for the next 3 months, come back to you in February with our findings. You might ask me, what is a staggered school bill schedule? Right now, all of our schools are within a 20-minute time frame of when they start. Staggered school bill schedule would move that distance away a little bit. We don't really know what that time could be at this time. That's what the committee will be there for. We're going to look at everything that it could touch each group, such as child nutrition, athletics, curriculum, our college courses that our kids take. We're also going to look at what this could do to our parents. And also from a transportation perspective, it could eliminate our driver shortage, decrease ride times for our students, and increase driver time. Right now, we only have 3.5 vacancies for our bus drivers, but we hardly have any sub-drivers. And when we need sub-drivers, sometimes we don't have enough. It's causing disruption in the schedule. In the mornings, kids are arriving late. We have teachers driving. We have other staff members driving, including myself. So we're just wanting to explore this to see what this could do, and we're asking your permission to get this thing started. Any questions?
So you would stagger it based on the level of the school, like maybe elementary might go earlier than middle, and high go later, and you are going to look at how that would affect families who have kids at multiple levels. Is that what you'd be considering?
We will. Some school districts do it a variety of different ways. The most common method is for elementary schools to start earlier than the middle and high schools. Some stagger elementary only. So we're going to look at all that.
I would think parents going to work and dropping their kids off at an elementary wouldn't have the same options a high school student would have to go later. So maybe early for elementary would be better.
Right,
parents.
we'll look into all that, right. Right now, from the Parent Advisory Committee that we've heard some initial reports from them, right now if you've got a student at Shoals, one at Pilot Middle, one at East Surry, it's hard to be in 3 places at the same time.
Yeah.
If we staggered a little bit, it could help even car riders out a little bit.
Gotcha.
If you take a look at the tab, obviously Mr. Hardy's put together a committee. I considered, Mr. Hardy and I have discussed maybe running this through the Auxiliary Services Committee on the Board of Education. Mr. Goins, would you care to serve on this committee?
I'd be happy to.
We have pushed this out just to ask for parents and teachers. So our Teacher Advisory Council and Parent Advisory Council, we've had good response from both of those groups. So the committee is actually a lot larger than we're going to have to find a big space to meet. which is okay. But you can kind of see the timeline that Mr. Hardy's put together. Several meetings. We can give you an update before February, but obviously if we make some changes, it's going to take some time for Mr. Hardy and his staff of one to work on bus schedules, rerouting, putting it all together, obviously for next August. So we're really thinking ahead to next fall in this timeline, trying to really study to see, is this something feasible or not?
And I think it's important we understand that staggering the bells has a lot more implications than just the time they come to school. You might can use some of those buses to do multiple routes and address some of those shortages.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. Yeah, certainly would. And March is really about the latest that we can make a decision. So when we bring you the findings in February, if you need more input, we still have another month. But it will take us a good 5 months to build a new routing system, and that's what it's going to take.
And I count 9 parents on the committee. That's great.
I think so.
Good.
So the only action you need tonight is approval for this study?
Yes.
Anyone care to make that motion?
Motion.
Motion from Mrs. Sutphen. Do we have a second?
Second. Or third or fourth. Yeah.
Second from Mr. Badgett. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Hardy.
Thank you.
Curriculum and instruction update. Mr. Atkins.
Good evening, board members. I'm here tonight to talk to you just a little bit about our ongoing discussion surrounding curriculum and instruction. And I know at last month's meeting, Mr. Badgett asked for some information relating to career and technical education. And if you look under the achievement section of our strategic plan, item 1.2, we've said that we're going to provide multiple opportunities for all students to earn college credits and career credentials. So what we're doing there, I just want to give you a little bit of a high-level overview tonight of our students in middle and high school and the amount of participation that we have in CTE right now. So if you look at this slide, right now we have 3,411 of our middle and high school students that are enrolled in at least one CTE course, and that's 83.1% of those students. Now in middle school, that number's 100%, because all middle school students either take Project Lead the Way and take our agriculture course in middle school as well. So middle school is very much an exploratory part of the CTE curriculum, and we try to get kids where they can understand what their interests are and where their passions lie before they enter high school. We currently in our high schools have, and these are students enrolled in CTE and also CTE courses through CCP. At the community college, we have 1,877 students enrolled right now, and that's 79.6% of our high school students in the first semester. So you can see CTE is thriving, alive and well. Yes.
Is that all? So is that all high school students, or
yes,
not just juniors and seniors?
No, that's all high school students.
Okay.
There's a lot of high school students are going to, now, not all of those are taking CCP courses.
Thank you, sorry.
Yeah,
I read
yeah.
that wrong.
But
Okay.
it does include the ones that are taking CCP courses.
Okay, thank you.
And then you can also see that when you look at the total number of high school students enrolled in CTE courses, not including CCP, that number's still really large at 1,733 students, which is 73.6% of our high school kids, about 3 out of 4. About 3 out of 4. And then finally, one thing that we really strive for in CTE is that we prefer, and sometimes kids start things and it's a way of life that we figure out, I don't really like that, so I want to go another direction. But we do want students to find a direction and a passion and to complete that pathway in high school. And you can see that we currently have 588 students that are enrolled in CTE completer courses. Now, you gotta think about a freshman or a sophomore. A lot of times, they're not even going to have the opportunity yet to be enrolled in a completer course. So we do have 588 students that are going to be completers enrolled in that now. And typically, our numbers are pretty good. When I come back and share data on the performance indicators within CTE later in the year, we'll have some data related to CTE concentrators that'll report to this, and we typically stack up real well compared to the state average. You have any questions for me?
Not a question, but a statement. We're starting registration for spring classes at Surry Community. And I sat down with some students today, and we're going through them what they wanted to take in the spring, and this is real world. This has happened today. It is amazing the difference in that student that's already got 32 hours of credit because of what they took in high school versus that one that came out with nothing is having to start with 0. Major difference in their future because now they are a year ahead of their friends and counterparts as they go through, and they're going to be able to get into technical programs, not just college, but technical programs even quicker and go to work. I think it's working great.
It's a great point. Mr. Badgett, we have every year we say the CCP program saves families in Surry County Schools, families hundreds of thousands of dollars in tuition and books. Not to mention our students that go on to four-year universities, such as NC State, for example. They go there and they have so much college credit that they earned while they were in high school that they graduate in 3 years. Yep. I've had two personally that have bachelor degrees, and I can say that it's really nice to think about not having to pay room and board and rent and all of those things for an extra year in high school. So it's the college-going culture that's been built in our school system is impressive. It's easy for us to take it for granted when you start thinking about those around us who don't have it and across the state who don't have it, but it's become an impressive component of our school system. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Is that it on that one? Or Ms. Harris?
Ms. Harris, are you going to finish the presentation for Dr. Danley tonight? Okay. Well, at this time, I think that concludes our presentation.
Okay. All right. I do have something in my report tonight. During COVID, Dr. Reeves and I have made more than one trip to each of our schools. Spent several hours there, but normally the Board of Education visits each school at least once a year. Are you open to returning to those visits? We might not do our cafeteria service as we've done in the past, but are you open at this point to scheduling and returning to those second semester?
I can't wait to get back into school.
Okay. Well, Dr. Reeves and I spent quite a bit of time on our visits, and Mrs. Sutphin came to some, and Mr. Goins came to some. Not everybody was able to go. They were a little different kind of visit, but we'll see if we can get those scheduled then. Okay, Dr. Reeves?
Well, thank you, Dr. Mosley. Be glad to schedule those board visits. I think it's great for our students to see our board members in our schools and understand with COVID, we've had to cut back on a lot of, make several limitations, but this is going to be great news as we get back to normal. As we think about the month of October, we've just concluded, but again, I want to say thank you to our principals. We have principals in the audience here tonight. We have principals watching at home. October was Principal Appreciation Month, and I just again want to reiterate my appreciation for our principals and their leadership. American Education Week. It's time to celebrate our teachers, time to celebrate all those that are serving in our schools, helping to meet the needs of our students. I'm so thankful for the people that come to work every day in our school system to meet the needs of our students. I also want to make mention that on November 9th, the Department of Public Instruction will be in Surry County all day looking at the promising practices that Surry County Schools has implemented so that they can showcase us across the state of North Carolina. You just heard a presentation from Mr. Atkins on CCP and this college-going culture. They're going to be, obviously, they're very interested in the work we've done there. They're interested in the flexible scheduling that we've been able to establish in our schools through our virtual academy, Surry Virtual Academy, that we started 9 years ago. They're interested in our Surry Online Magnet School, as well as the social and emotional learning framework that Ms. Southern presented to you tonight, and the leadership framework that Ms. Southern has presented to you. If you think about this federal grant that you and I pursued several years ago, we're very fortunate to have that grant in place now that obviously we've been through what we've been through over the past 2 years. So I'm very thankful. So that's kind of it's going to be a fun day for us to be able to showcase the great things happening in Surry County Schools. We're going to start at the central office, but we have a ribbon cutting at 9 a.m. at Dobson Elementary. So we're going to invite our friends from the department to the ribbon cutting, and then tour Dobson Elementary, and then we're going to Surry Central. Thank you, Ms. Holloway. We're going to several other schools, and then we'll conclude at Meadowview in the Media Center with several presentations. So it's going to be a fun-packed day, and we welcome our friends from Raleigh to Surry County to showcase the great things happening in our school system. I did have a student advisory council meeting and parent advisory council meeting during the month of October, and one thing I heard loud and clear, we went through our leadership framework, and I heard some great anecdotal stories from our students and parents about the leadership framework and how it's already impacting their learning and their daily life. And one parent reiterated that it was really neat for her 6-year-old to come home and talk about being resilient. And I thought that was very impactful, Ms. Southern, when we talk about how we're using the leadership framework to impact lives and to help our students understand how to lead self, lead with others, and change our world. So thank you for your leadership, and I appreciate all those that have been through the cohort with the Center for Creative Leadership. I believe it's truly making a difference in our district. We also were able to celebrate at North Surry High School a ribbon cutting. Ms. Sutphen, thank you for joining me. Mr. Goins, thank you for joining me. The North Surry Foundation was able to raise $50,000 and contribute to that school and to their athletic program, and really outfit a new weight room, which is a classroom for all students, not just athletics, but for all students taking weightlifting, both male and female. So $50,000 contribution from the folks at the North Surry Foundation to upfit that weight room. It's a beautiful facility there in the field house. Give a Kid a Christmas is kicking off. It's well underway. We're working hard. Ms. Parker, thank you for being here from the Salvation Army. So we're working with that organization to make sure that we help meet the needs of the students in Surry County Schools. Had a lot of folks that have come by and signed up for Angels. So that organization's working really hard to raise money. We will be shopping on December the 9th at the Elkin Walmart, and we're going to start at 9 p.m. We have a telethon. I think that's on Monday, November 29th. Is that right, Kim? Telethon. This will be our second telethon, and we have commitments from Austin Cavanis and Cameron Kent to kind of co-host that event like we did last year. Unique way to raise funds for Give a Kid a Christmas, so we're excited about that. And I have spent some time meeting with every assistant principal in our school district, talking about leadership, their future. As you know, it's important for us to continue to build the bench, and it's important for us to invest in the folks in our school system. So I've been able to sit down with our assistant principals during the month of October. So a lot of great things happening in our school system, and we appreciate your leadership on the Board of Education. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Reeves. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion from Mr. Coe. Do I have a second? Second from Mr. Goins. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Action items. Mr. Gillespie, I think you have a proposal to present.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for all that you're doing. Just come before you tonight asking you for your approval for 2 contracts, one for teacher and staff devices and one for student Chromebooks, both from Trafera LLC. These were put out, these are purchases, will be purchased through ESSER funding, and we put out for bids in early October and opened those sealed bids earlier last week.
Any questions?
Will they be able to deliver them all at the same time, or what's the expectation? Because they do reference that.
Right. It's you know, as you all know, there are supply chain issues, especially in the world of technology today. And so they will not make guarantees on the delivery time, and that's understandable with everything going on. But I do believe that they'll take their best effort to get those to us in a timely fashion.
Okay, and it was as long, it seemed like they approved the price just as long as we go ahead and approve the contract, the order, I guess.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
That's correct.
Any other questions for Mr. Gillespie?
Do we have a track record with them? Have we used them before?
Absolutely. And Trafera, we have an excellent reputation. They have an excellent reputation. We have an excellent relationship with Trafera. One of the things that sets Trafera apart is their warranty program, which allows us and our technology department, in fact, our technicians can submit directly through a portal with Trafera to get replacement parts delivered. That way we don't have to ship a broken warranty claim back to them and wait for that entire device to come back. We can get those parts directly.
Other questions?
No more questions.
I just had one more.
Sure.
Which devices are we trading out? At what grade levels? What
Great
does this
question.
replace?
Great question. So rather than thinking about it on a grade level basis, we're looking at it as a device on a device basis. So currently, our fleet of Gen 1 and Gen 2 Chromebooks are at what Chrome or Google calls end of life. Doesn't mean that they no longer work, it just means they no longer get updates. And so as that, just you all know, if you have iPhones and Android devices, eventually they get to the point where they're not updating, and then you have compatibility issues with apps and things like that that you would like to use with them. So that's what's going on with those. Those will be the first devices that we begin to swap out to replace those.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
If there are no more questions, I have a motion from Mr. Goins to approve. Did you have a question?
No,
I'm
I'll
sorry.
second.
All right, I have a motion
I
from
didn't
Mr.
hear him.
Goins.
He's talking
He said it
too
very
loud.
quietly.
Yeah.
Have a second from Mr. Coe. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr.
Thank you so
Gillespie.
much.
Mrs. Parks.
Good evening.
Hello.
It's good to see everyone tonight. So I want to talk to you a little bit about our procurement plan update for school nutrition. As you know, it's our goal, our mission to procure high quality, reasonably priced food, supplies, and equipment for our program. We follow federally funded, we're a federally funded program, and so we have to follow federal, state, and local procurement laws, regulations, and guidance. Back in 2011, the board approved a procurement plan for school nutrition, and it was updated in 2018, and it included micro-purchasing guidelines for $3,000 or less. So tonight, I am asking the board to authorize us to increase that micro-purchasing amount to $10,000. As you know, our school meal programs nationwide are experiencing many supply chain issues, and we are making substitutions and adjustments daily and even weekly. And so one of the things that DPI is suggesting is that we purchase in bulk when we can find items, and in order to do that, we really need to raise our ability to purchase things in an emergency format, and that increased amount for micro purchasing would really help us. And so we're just asking for your approval to revise our procurement plan tonight.
I know you've had issues with supply chain lately.
Every week we're getting better and better at manipulating and moving things around, but I must say it is exhausting for our central office staff and also for our managers and our employees, because they're just constantly making adjustments. but they're doing a great job, as they always do. Always proud of our staff, and so we're dealing with it. You know, we feel like we've hit the jackpot when we land on some trays or some forks or something. So it's kind of like, you know, winning the lottery when you come across something that you need. But right now, we're holding steady. So, thank you.
Well, I've read some school systems have to order pizza for lunch from pizza, so we're not into that.
No, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. We've been very fortunate, very blessed. We have a good food distributor, mainline distributor. We have an alternate vendor that we work with. We rely heavily on our commodities. We are very fortunate in Surry County. We have a very large warehouse. We have a very large cooler and freezer at our maintenance department. And so we utilize those facilities all the time, every week. We're also very fortunate to have folks on our maintenance staff, and Mr. John and his staff, who help us get those items stored and ship them out to our schools. So we utilize every advantage that we have, so I feel like that we kind of are ahead of the game. So we're very fortunate.
That was somewhat of my question, is where do you find it?
It's
when it's not from our main.
Yes, we have a vendor that it's Performance Foods out of Hickory, and they have been a godsend to us because they do not work with schools. And so the things that we're looking for, they seem to have those items because they normally work with restaurants and retail. And so we're kind of, you know, offsetting what they kind of need the business in the pandemic, and so it's a good fit for us right now. He says he smiles when we call, so we're delighted. Not everybody smiles when we call, so we're excited that we can partner with that group out of Hickory. And U.S. Foods, our mainline distributor, has encouraged us to reach out to other vendors because if they don't have it, they certainly want us to be able to have what we need. So it's not a competition type of thing.
So by buying in bulk, you're able to save us money in the long run because you can get more of it in bulk. So can you give us an example of what kind of item you might buy with this authority?
Yes. We have to-go boxes that we have purchased from Southeastern Paper and also from Performance. And the reason that we have to use to-go boxes because of our social distancing. Everybody can't eat in the cafeteria, and so we have to have those boxes, especially for our young children, so we can put their food into a box, cover it, and then they can go back to their classroom. So that's one of the items that we've been able to get from an alternative vendor.
Okay.
And we have 19 schools, and so obviously it takes a lot of supplies to support those schools. You know, it's not always easy. It's one thing to, I've heard people go into Sam's Club, and that's fine, but you know, we could not go to Sam's Club and get all the supplies that we need for our 19 schools. So I'm glad that works for small districts, but it really doesn't work for us.
It'd be hard to serve 7,300 a day from Sam's Club, wouldn't it?
That's right. So we've been very fortunate. We just keep working, and we go week by week, and we try to go out as far ahead of time as we can.
Any other questions?
Refresh my memory, how many meals do you serve a day?
Well, it just, right now I think we're serving anywhere from 5,500 to 6,500. It depends on the menu sometimes with us. You know, a lot of folks are ask us, well, you know, it's free, so you don't offer any options, but we do. These are our students, our customers, and you know, we operate just as we did before the pandemic, whether it's free or paying. We really want to have food that our students enjoy and that they want to eat. And so we try to offer as many options as we can with the staffing and the supply shortages that we have. So
The federal government has done away with some of the restrictions you were working on before the pandemic.
Yes, we have about 25 waivers right now that we operate under and that we are updating quarterly. And so one of those waivers is a meal pattern waiver. And so some of the restrictions on sodium or sugar, they've relaxed just a little bit. We still try to follow those as much as we possibly can.
Yeah.
But if we have to sub in, sometimes we don't always get whole grain. And so we have to have a regular item. And that's probably okay with our kids. So we do operate under many, many waivers. So yes, they have helped us quite a bit. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Have a motion?
I do. Motion.
Motion to approve from Mrs. Sutphen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Coe. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mrs. Parks. I think you're still up.
Okay, thank you.
Proud of you.
Thank
Good
you so
job.
Thank you so much. So my next item that I want to talk with you about tonight is it's a school nutrition retention bonus. As you know, the school nutrition staff has worked diligently throughout the pandemic since March 16th, 2020. Many of our employees have worked with little or no break. We've served over 2 million free meals to children throughout our district. And we've served outside and on buses and classrooms and hallways, cafeteria. And we feel very strongly that our school meals support the health and academic success of our students. The lingering effects of the pandemic has produced a labor shortage, and it makes it difficult to operate sometimes in the school nutrition environment. Our State Board of Education recognizes those challenges and also the challenges of school nutrition programs across the state. As a result, they approved a $10 million fund, PRC 174, that is specifically for school nutrition to support the retention and recruitment of school nutrition personnel. Each district was allotted their share of these funds based on enrollment, and Surry County Schools was allotted $51,747. Yay. Each district is required to submit an application to show how the funds will be used. So we have a proposal that I believe is in your board packet. We believe that our proposal is very thoughtful. It's based on longevity, assigned hours, and the assignment of the employee. And I believe there's a chart that you have access to that shows how that breaks down. We divided our 92 employees into 3 categories: 3 years or less, 4 to 10 years, and 11 years or greater. Most of our employees work 6 hours or less, with managers working 8 hours per day. We wanted to assign an amount per group, and you can see that, but we also wanted to recognize that core group that's there for breakfast, lunch, and cleanup. And that's about 57 of our employees. They work more than 4 hours, but less than 8. So that group would receive a differential amount of $75.35. We would like to pay the bonus in 2 installments, one in November, December, and one in May. We would like for their employees to be physically working in the cafeteria in order to earn the bonus. And we'd also like to include 3 of our central office staff members. Social Security will be taken out of the bonus, but retirement will not be applied to this particular bonus. It is my strong belief that our best employees are the ones that we already have. We appreciate their experience, their commitment, and dedication to Surry County Schools. And we believe that this bonus is a great investment in our staff. So at this time, I would love to answer any questions that you might have.
When we consider their years of service, will we look at their full time, even if there may have been a break at some point?
It depends on the situation. We will certainly take a look at that. I know that we do have a couple of employees that resigned early in their career and then returned, and so we'll have to take a look at that. Yes.
Okay.
I think the way we've calculated everything, we give everybody as much service as possible. So yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important that we recognize the struggle you've had with trying to find and recruit and keep people, because, you know, it's not like you can work a full-time job and do this, because you're doing 4 to 6 hours a day And I know a lot of them supplement that with driving buses and things like that. And I also wanted to point out that not only did the State Board of Education endorse this, but Superintendent Truitt also endorsed it. So I think it sounds to me like there's broad-based support for this, and I support it, because I know how hard your staff works.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate your support. You know, we would certainly love for it to have been more, but we are so appreciative that they decided to recognize this very special group of employees. So we were very thankful and grateful.
Any other questions?
No, I was just going to echo my appreciation for what you and your staff do. And it's been a while since we've worked in a cafeteria, and I've only done it a few times, but every time I've done it, someone has said to me, now this next class, there will be a child who can't eat this. For them to know the food allergies of our children and to know our children so well is impressive.
Thank you. Thank you for recognizing that. And this year, you know, even though we're back in our cafeterias, I do want to mention that, you know, the service times are longer. Because we have to do the social or physically distancing. So, you know, even though we're back in and we're thankful for that, it's still tough because those service times are longer. We have less time to clean. And as you know from this group, it's so important for them to have those 100s and 99s inspections in their cafeterias. And so we're still doing that, but it's tough. So thank you for recognizing that. We appreciate your support so much.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion from Mr. Badgett, second.
Second.
Second from Mrs. Sutphen, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mrs. Parks.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
I think. Mrs. Southern, are you back with us?
Actually going to turn it over to these ladies here, our mental health counselors, for them to present a mental health update and also an approval for a MOU to help with some additional supports.
Good evening, board members. I'm Haley Cushman, Mental Health Counselor Coordinator. Before we get started, I'm excited to introduce my colleague, Ingle Armstrong Sloop. She's also Mental Health Coordinator Counselor. We split the county. She has 10 schools and I have 10 schools. So today we're just bringing you some mental health updates and referral data. And the numbers that I'm getting ready to present, this data only reflects the schools that are utilizing our referral process. The referral process is new this school year for 2021-2022. We're still doing some training with some of our schools. So the schools that have not utilized the referral process, that data is not included in these numbers. So since the beginning of 2021-2022 school year, we have had 104 school-based mental health referrals. 49 of those referrals were for school-based mental health services. 29 of those referrals were crisis intervention services. 23 of those referrals were for consultation services from either myself or Ms. Sloop. And then 3 of those referrals were for students transitioning into Surry County schools with multiple mental health agency involvement or transitioning back to school from an inpatient treatment facility. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Sloop to give you some updates on our program.
So the Surry County Board of our mental health program has provided all schools with a school-based mental health guide, and that includes guidance for referrals for mental health services, appropriate forms for mental and behavioral health services, behavior and social emotional tiered system of supports, crisis intervention protocols that include suicide prevention protocols and threat assessments, guidance for restorative returns and transitions for students. Pinnacle Therapeutic has partnered with Central Middle School to provide outpatient counseling services at Central Middle School. The school-based mental health program increased our mental health literacy in all of our schools by providing a social emotional table at each school for their open house at the start of the 2021-2022 school year. And it provided such information for students and parents as local community agency resources, as well as school contacts, specific school contacts to promote mental and emotional wellness. We have our school psychologists and Ms. Cushman are trained in providing trauma-focused cognitive behavior therapy to those appropriately referred students with parental involvement there. I was not on board then when they went for that training, so I do not have that specific training. And we do continue to have a growing need for mental health and social emotional support, as you have heard and seen in the charts. It's just so much greater than our resources that are available even in our local community. That is a challenge that we face every day. But we do plan to expand as much as possible as the demand for the services continue to grow.
So our resources that we currently utilize, our school-based mental health program has 2 MOUs, as you all are aware, with Pinnacle Therapeutic out of Elkin, North Carolina, who's partnered with Central Middle School. And they come to Central Middle School once a week to provide outpatient counseling services to referred students. And then we have a second MOU with Daymark Recovery in Mount Airy. Daymark is not currently in any of our schools at this time because they're struggling with recruiting a licensed or licensed eligible clinician in our area. So at this time, we're just asking the board for approval for an additional MOU through the Children's Center in Dobson, North Carolina. This approval, we use the Children's Center a lot within our schools for multiple programs that they provide. With this approval, it'll increase access to mental health services for Surry County school students, virtual as well as in-person services on school campus and at their clinic. So we're asking for the approval for a third MOU, the Children's Center, outpatient counseling services, and their variety of programs that come along with it.
Questions?
Are you seeing, with these referrals that you're getting, are you seeing more elementary or middle or high? I guess, are you seeing any trends, and do any of these represent sibling groups for who you're serving?
I do not think there's a trend. It's pretty much across the board, elementary, middle, and high. I do have a few siblings, but that's not always the case. Sometimes I might have a sibling and the other student is fine and very successful in academics and mental wellness.
And I'm seeing the same as well.
Any other questions?
So I asked the same question. I asked Mrs. Southern, are you seeing an increase in students that may need additional mental health and social help because of the pandemic and all the issues that surround it in the school setting or at home?
Absolutely. Yes, I think there is a major increase. And you had a little cheerleading section over there when you were talking about school counselors. We were going to jump up and clap. But they're a huge resource for the school, and I know for us, because they are there every single day. They know the students. They have the relationship. But we have seen a major increase in anxiety, depression, mental wellness across the board has decreased. And a lot of that has to do with the pandemic and isolation during that time and social distancing and just the changes, and then coming back into the school and trying to transition, which is typical. I think we've all had our own fair share of struggles through the pandemic, but we are seeing an increase. We're just struggling with finding the resources in our community to meet the need of that increase. But we have wonderful community partners through Daymark, the Children's Center, partners. Everyone that's listed in our grant are wonderful providers, and we've been reaching out to them and in contact with them. I think it's just going to take a village, take the whole community to help kind of get through this with our students.
Now, will this center, it's in Dobson?
Mm-hmm.
Will it be system-wide, or kids anywhere, or what schools are we talking about?
So in meeting with them, they have the option of virtual teletherapy. So we can utilize them for specific students to do teletherapy. We already refer students there to go to the clinic to have therapy services or family services, but this MOU would give us the option once, if his caseload allows the therapist, that they could come into the school and provide therapy services, which helps the parents with the transportation piece. Yes.
Will that be, what I've said, system-wide, all 19?
Yes, it can be. We'll probably look at it school by school first.
Yeah.
But yes.
It's defined here as 5 pro bono slots.
Mm-hmm.
Is that students?
Yes.
That is.
Well, yes.
Okay.
Well, it'll be students that do not have a source of income. So if a
Okay.
student does not have insurance or is not able to pay a sliding scale fee through this contract, the Children's Center will provide us with 5 free
Okay.
slots.
If a student can pay, they may be taking advantage. Would they be taking advantage of these services too?
Yes.
Could they be? You
Mhm.
could be referring them to anyway?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And it's my understanding the Children's Center is not just of Surry anymore, it's Northwest North Carolina, right? So doesn't that give them more capabilities?
Well, I can speak to that, and so before you vote, let me disclose that I will not vote because I also serve on the board of the Children's Center. They do represent Northwest North Carolina now, so it's not just Surry County. They take referrals and run programs in 7 to 9 other counties in Northwest North Carolina. So, yes, they have expanded their services greatly.
Okay.
Any other questions? Motion to approve.
Motion.
Motion for Mr. Badgett. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second for Mr. Goins. All in favor?
Aye.
And please note that I am not voting in any way. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Collins?
Good evening. I'm here tonight to present for approval PRC 184, the Homeless Debarment Certification for 21-22. The amount is $45,156.
Any questions?
Are these additional funds that we didn't already know about with previous ESSER
Yes.
reports?
This is additional funding.
Okay.
Motion
And
to
how-
approve.
Second.
Have a motion from Mr. Coe and a second from Mr. Goins. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a few announcements tonight, so at this time I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. Coe.
Madam Chair, I would like to resign my seat on the Board of Education after almost 19 years to pursue other opportunities, and I would like to thank the people of Surry County, the students, the teachers, the administrators, and my former and present board members for all the help you have given me through these 19 years. It was a difficult decision, but I think I will call it it is not due to any illness or anything. And the performance of this job is just an opportunity I think I'll pursue. Thank you.
Mr. Coe, I think we speak for everyone on the board, and we thank you for your service. The enormous amount of time you have given to Surry County Schools, to the students, and have represented your community well.
Thank you.
Would anyone else?
Earlier, I'd like to say how much I appreciate your service on the board. You've been not only a friend, but a good colleague to work with. We haven't always agreed, but we've always been friends and got along well. And I appreciate everything you've done for the Surry County school system and the children in Surry County. And I'll certainly value your friendship, and I hope that continues, and I'm sure it will in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your leadership. You were the chair when I came onto the board. Thank you for your leadership and your guidance and bringing to us all of your experience that you have in serving at the state level on committee. Thank you for what you have meant to all of the students myself included, as a teacher in Surry County Schools, and to our board. Thank you.
Mr. Coe, I think all any teacher could ever ask is for students to come up to them after they're out of school and remember the things that you did for them and the contributions you made to their life. I've sat in this gym many times and heard students come on this stage during convocation and look at you and said, I'm where I'm at today because of you. So I think not only do we thank you, but the students and citizens of Surry County thank you for your service.
Mr. Coe, I want to thank you for the opportunity to serve this fine school system as superintendent. I also want to thank you for your leadership. You served 1 year on the State Board of Education. I know how well Mr. Coe is respected across the state because as I go places, they always ask me about you. Bill Harrison, June Atkinson, other state board members, other folks that served on the state board with you, they always appreciate your thoughtful questions and the practical experiences that you always brought to that position. I appreciate your leadership on this board for 19 years. You've always been an advocate for students, for teachers. You always wanted to do what was right. I know that you've been instrumental in the one-to-one initiative that happened several years ago. I know back in 2013 we started looking at our facilities, and November 9th we're going to be able to cut another ribbon at Dobson Elementary to celebrate some of that work. It takes a lot of work to put these pieces in place, and you've been steadfast, so thank you for your leadership.
Mr. Johnson, do we need a formal motion to accept?
We need a motion to accept the resignation.
Well, regretfully, I'm going to ask for that motion.
Do we have to?
I'm afraid.
Motion.
I have a motion from Mrs. Setfin. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Goins. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Again, thank you. You have a long list of announcements for the month. I would like to add one additional meeting date. We will have a special called meeting on November the 19th. Place to be determined and time to be published. Any other business tonight? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion from Mrs. Sutphen. Do I have a second?
Second. I'll add.
Second.
I started
Second.
saying, you get the last.
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are now
Thank y'all.
adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.